It's a Guy Jeans podcast.
Hey, you guys, my next guest is Malcom Bruce, who is the son of Jack Bruce, the famous bass player for the band Cream. And Malcom has put together a really cool project called Heavenly Cream. It's an acoustic tribute to Cream. And he's got all these cool players playing on it. Ginger Baker, the original drummer, actually plays on it. And Pete Brown, the lyricist for Cream, is also singing on it. There's also Joe Bonamassa on the album, Malcom Bruce, of course, Bernie Marsden, Pee Wee Ellis, Abbas Dodo, Deborah Bonham, and Peter Bullick, Nathan James, just to name a few. But there's a whole bunch of people, and they've redone all these different famous songs by Cream, including I Feel Free, White Room, Theme of an Imaginary Western, We're Going Wrong, Sunshine of Your Love. Ginger Baker's playing on that. Joe Bonamassa is singing on that. Malcom Bruce is playing on it. Bernie Marsden's playing on that track as well. So sit back and listen to my conversation with Malcom. He's an amazing musician. He plays everything. And he got together all these people, and they recorded at Abbey Roads in England. And it's a really great conversation. I really enjoyed talking to him. So sit back and enjoy. Malcom, how you doing?
I'm really well, Guy. How's it going?
It's going great, man. Super stoked to have you on the show and talk to you about your new project and all that.
Fantastic, man. Fantastic.
So how did this new project come about?
Well, it's kind of like a family affair, really. Pete Brown, the Cream lyricist, approached me back in 2018. So it's been a long time coming. He sadly passed away earlier this year, but he basically put the whole thing together with this record label, Quarto Valley, and then approached me to get involved, approached Rob Cass, the producer, to get involved, and then his film collaborator, a guy called Mark Waters, came in and to shoot a documentary about the making of the record. So that's coming out at the same time, alongside the album. So yeah, it's been a labor of love, really, back 5 years ago. And once we had that core team, we started reaching out to other people. We got Bernie Marsden from Whitesnake involved early on. And then just started piecing it together, seeing who we could get on board.
The amount of...
And, the premise is like, obviously Cream are known, it's blues rock music, but the idea was to do an acoustic tribute to the band, but not like coffee house acoustic, more like just not electric instruments, but still full band arrangements and stuff like that. So yeah.
The amount of musicians you have on the record is unbelievable, and the quality musicians you have on the record. Would you mind talking about that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we were fortunate we reached out to Ginger Baker early on, and he agreed to come in. And obviously, Ginger was the original drummer in Cream, so
yeah, awesome.
So that I've known Ginger a little bit over my whole life, but it was really nice that he agreed to come in and do it, and it ended up being his final recording session before he passed away. So that in a way, he's the most important person on the record because he was one of the original guys. Him and Pete Brown, obviously, who wrote quite a lot of the words for the song. So
yeah.
So from there, we just started reaching out. We got Joe Bonamassa to come in on some tracks with Ginger and Paul Rodgers from Free and Bad Company, and Bernie Marsden, who I mentioned already, from Whitesnake, and his bandmate Neil Murray, the bass player from Whitesnake. Who else? Deborah Bonham.
Yeah.
The amazing Deborah Bonham. So she's John Bonham's sister.
Yep.
Younger sister, and Maggie Bell from a Scottish band called Stone the Crows, an incredible singer. Bobby Rush, legendary guy from the US.
What was incredible is I'm going through the list of all the musicians, and I'm like, oh man, I can't believe you got Pee Wee Ellis, James,
Yeah.
James Brown's one of James Brown's saxophone players and musical directors. I thought that was pretty cool. And
Yeah, Pee Wee was actually living in the UK with his wife. He sadly passed away as well. But he had been living in the UK for a while. He was actually playing in Ginger Baker's band.
Okay.
So they had a connection already. But it was just wonderful. I mean, I spent the day with Pee Wee, and he was just, the most humble, chilled out guy you could ever meet. But it's like, dude, you wrote The Chicken, and you were like James Brown's musical director, man. Like, but you're like this nice, quiet, kind of polite man. You're not like some big egotistical whatever. And I think that's my experience as I go through and as I've been through my career so far. Is like, if I'm around these incredible people that have done these incredible things, most of them tend to be pretty humble.
They do, huh?
Lesson.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm going through the list too, and I was, kind of researching all these people. Everybody seems in some way or another connected. To you and the band in some way. And I'm checking out all the people that are playing on all these. And I hope I say this right, but Abbas Dodu, the percussionist.
Yeah, Abbas is amazing.
Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine. He's a incredible musician from Ghana, and he was in Ginger's band as well. And he was Ginger's friend and bandmate, and but I've become friends with him. I met him. So when in 2016 I put a tribute to my dad together. He passed away actually today, 9 years ago, believe it or not.
Yes.
So 2 years after he passed in 2014, I did a tribute in London at Shepherd's Bush Empire for my dad, and we asked Ginger. I emailed Ginger and said, "Hey man, do you really?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll come." So Ginger came, but Abbas sort of accompanied him to look after him because Ginger wasn't that well.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first time I met Abbas back in 2016, and then since then we've done a few different collaborations and we've done shows together and stuff. He's just an amazing guy and great person to be around.
Yeah. And then there was another gentleman named Mo Foster that looks like he played bass a little bit on one of the tracks.
Mo has actually passed away this year as well. It seems like it's really strange time. I mean, it seems like a certain generation are kind of some of them are certainly leaving us at this point. So there's a whole bunch on this record. And as I said, because it was made 5 years ago, a number of people have passed on since then. So Mo was not a well-known name so much like in the big picture, but as a session musician, he was legendary. Played with everybody from, Jeff Beck and just everybody, a sort of who's who of, artists from the 70s on, really. But even like playing with more like musicians like Simon Phillips or, the drummer, and Simon was in my dad's band when he was 17, but then ended up doing the Mike Oldfield stuff and then famously joined The Who after Keith Moon passed and was in Toto, all kinds of bands. Simon lives in LA, actually. Yes, I think you're right. I mean, I guess that kind of works like that.
Yeah.
You tend to have a network of people that are all connected either directly or indirectly. And, even Paul Rodgers, who we have on this record, his first big band, obviously, was Free, and Andy Fraser was the bass player in Free, and I knew Andy. I did a tour as his support act in his final UK tour that he did in the UK about 10 years ago. And Andy, when he was a teenager, was in the Alexis Corner Blues Incorporated, which was one of the first bands that my dad was also in the sort of early 60s. So they all kind of shared the same circuit, the same scene. I guess it's a bit like now, like where you are on the West Coast. I bet you there's like a bunch of bands that know each other and play the same shows. Yeah. But then it was a much smaller thing. So I think it's just like who's in the phone book, who's going to be called, or who knows this. And but Marsden, just another amazing guy, such a great spirit, but he had a sort of friendship with Joe Bonamassa, and so it kind of made it a little easier for us to sort of get a message to Joe and say, "Hey, are you up for this?" And we were fortunate that he agreed. So yes, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah, man. So "Sunshine of Your Love" with Joe singing is already out. Is that right? Like it's
that was the first single that's been released. Yeah.
God, he sounds great, man.
Yeah.
You know his voice.
I actually thought his voice sounded really awesome on that track. Yeah, I mean, I was standing next to him when we basically did the tracking. We did the basic tracking together in Abbey Road Studio 2 for that song, and then he spent a little bit of time doing overdubs. So he did the vocals again, and he did a guitar solo kind of slide thing.
So,
but basically the tracks were, we played together in the room, and then just a little bit of fixing and a little bit of overdubbing.
Awesome. I was reading Mo Foster was played on your record as well, but he says something about how he was influenced by your dad and his bass playing. Did you have you known that?
Yeah, I mean, he actually came to when at the tribute that I mentioned in 2016, I just actually it was me and Pete Brown. We kind of spent, it was like giving birth, like 9 months of the year putting this thing together and reaching out to everybody. And, we had Mick Taylor from the Stones and Lulu singing. And,
no way.
Dennis Chambers flew over, who's like
the
most incredible drummer. Gary Husband, the drummer. Corky Lang, who's a friend of mine from West Bruce and Lang and also Mountain. And Mo came and played, and also Jeff Berlin, for those of you that are more into the kind of jazz fusion thing, that might know Jeff's name, and just lots of people like that. So yeah, Mo had been around, and I think, Jeff Berlin just did a tribute record to my dad because they were friends, and Jeff is a huge, he cites my dad as his biggest influence. So I think for a certain generation of people that came slightly after my dad in terms of their careers, I think a lot of people do cite him as an influence, and I'm very proud to hear that when people talk about that, because I think that's the thing about my dad. He kind of freed one of a few people from that time that freed the instrument up, and we still get caught. I think we still as musicians get kind of caught up in the rigid roles of being a musician. Okay, you're the bass player, you've got to sound like this. You're the guitarist, you've got to be like this.
Yeah.
And actually, of course, the instrument is a particular kind of instrument and makes a particular kind of sound. But within that, there can be a more free way of expressing yourself on the instrument, rather than just playing the root notes all the time and standing in the shadows.
Yeah, yeah. So was he kind of known for like improvising and taking it to other places, kind of a bass player? Is that why so many people were influenced by him?
Yeah, I think so. I think, my dad came from he was classically trained and had studied jazz and then discovered the blues. And so he had all these kind of disparate influences. So which just meant he didn't see it. He didn't, a lot of people in popular music back then came to it from like listening to records and not really studying music in the wider context. And I think that's what perhaps gives, what my dad brought to the table was something a bit more knowledgeable, a bit more in-depth, insightful knowledge about music in the wider context, the history of music, Stravinsky or Johann Sebastian Bach or what, and so you're just looking at music more as an expanded idea, not just this, blocks of chords and then this is how it's supposed to sound. And I think that with Cream, certainly you're hearing that. You're hearing three musicians that are very, very much expanding the vocabulary of music by exploring, by being open to trying things out and moving in directions that perhaps other people wouldn't have thought of. And, you know, so to me, Cream was a really important band in that sense. It was a band that improvised, you know, and so it was never the same twice. And there's a good thing about that and a bad thing about that.
Yeah.
But you know, because sometimes you do need things to be repetitive, and you know, okay, that's what it's supposed to be. But also the organic element of what music can be can just really open up a sense of possibility. So that, to me, in a way, that's what can be exciting: the possibility of something being forever new, you know.
Yeah, and just creating it on stage, man. How fun for the audience and the fans. I mean, God.
Absolutely.
Oh my God. So,
but I think back then it might have been something to do with the drugs they were taking. I have no idea. It's
Right.
57 years ago or something now, so I don't know.
So I'm looking at all the songs on this new record, and obviously you're a musical talent. You play on every single track, I think. It looks like you're,
okay.
And I see that you're playing like a multi-instruments. You're playing the piano, you're playing the guitar. Are you playing the bass on one of the songs too?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question to you is, okay, so your dad, obviously an amazing bass player. What about like his dad and his family? Like, you know, were they musically inclined as well? Is that where that comes from?
Not really. I mean, my grandmother, I think she sang a little bit, and there was certainly an awareness of music, and Scottish folk music was a big formative influence on my father. I think he just had a talent, maybe somewhere back in the generations there were other musicians, but I'm not sure. But I mean, I think my grandfather played the mandolin a little bit, and probably played the piano. You know, I think going back to those generations.
Yeah.
The early, you know, 2 or 3 generations back, I think it was, you know, for all of us, it would be more normal that family members would play the piano around the house or whatever, because we didn't have televisions and satellites
Right.
and these laptops and iPads and, you know, we like, okay, what are we going to do? Well, maybe I'll practice piano, you know.
Yeah. I find
it's a different time. You know?
For sure. I find that stuff really interesting. And, you know, like when you're growing up and you know, obviously, you know, seeing your dad play and stuff, did that have a big influence on you becoming a musician, or is it just in your blood? You just had to be a musician? I mean, how did that go down?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can sort of extract that. I think it was inevitably would have had an influence on me, but I also fell in love with making music from a very early age. I was having classical piano lessons by the age of about 5, and then I maybe took a break and started again at 9 and 10, and then when I was in secondary school or high school, I guess you'd call it, I was doing, I get confused, but I studied the violin for about 7 years, and carried on the piano, and picked up the electric guitar when I was about 10, the bass guitar when I was about 7 or 8. And I've sung all the way through. So, I mean, I think it's just, you know, that became what I was attracted to. And, you know, I played sport when I was a teenager. I was pretty good at it.
Yeah.
I was, you know, but I kind of got to a point where I just thought, wait a minute, I've got to protect my fingers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm more interested in girls and music. Forget this sport thing.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
So you know, I think it was just, you know, it's inevitable that I fell into it. And I think by the age of 8, 9, 10, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a musician and pursue that. So I just kind of got into it. Really.
Was your dad?
And my dad was always there.
Was he always like, you know, pushing you and stuff like that? Like, hey, you know, keep doing it, or was he into you being a musician?
Yeah, he was encouraging, but he wasn't pushy at all. No, I think my dad, I really respect my dad for just, he was complicated, and he had a shadow side, a dark side, and lots of different things going on, but like all of us, you know, but generally, he wasn't controlling, you know, so he encouraged people to be themselves, and, you know, if, like, one of my sisters is actually a making films. You know, she's so like she didn't pursue music. One of my other sisters is a songwriter, and one of my brothers is a drummer, and I'm a musician. So like, but it could have gone any direction, and those people, they may or may not have huge careers in those things because they've got other interests too. You know, it's like, my dad wasn't like, okay, you've got to be a musician, right? Okay, you are not allowed to go out until you've practiced. Like, that was me doing that. I was the one that had to sort of motivate myself.
Yeah.
And I think in a way it's a strange thing. Like, some parents are, I mean, I have a daughter, so I'm kind of talking partly from experience, but you know, you want to be a disciplinarian as a parent, but at the same time you're working with a whole human being, a whole separate human person, you know, and you have to respect that as well. So as much as, you know, parents always go into it thinking most parents think, this is going to happen, and I'm going to control this, and this is going to be, I'm going to create the perfect child, you know. Yeah. But by the end of it, you're like, whatever, man. You know, do what you want. Just leave me alone.
Can you remember the first time that you played music with your dad, or did you?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think I was, you know, I mean, I have lots of memories, but I can certainly remember around the age of 7 or 8. I think I've even got some recordings somewhere.
That's cool. Love it.
I think I wrote a song called Goldland or something like that, and I played
at 7.
Played it and sang it. Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool. I love it.
And he's playing. I think somebody's playing drums and he's playing bass, and I'm playing guitar, and I'm sort of screaming out this song. I'm going to have to try and dig that up. Yeah, so I mean, from very early on, and then we would play music together, improvise a lot just around the house, and then as I got older, I actually started helping him in the studio with his records. Like, sometimes I did play on a bunch of his records, but also awesome. Just kind of being in a supportive role, because I write music as well, so I was transcribing parts and all kinds of things to sort of in a supportive role. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I was very much involved with my dad and learned a lot from him, but at the same time learned a lot from just making music. You know, we all have our own path ultimately, you know. Yeah. I think we have to stand on our own 2 feet eventually. Hopefully.
Yeah. So is the name of the album Heavenly Cream? Is there a reason for that name?
Yeah, I mean, we were like, the working title was Cream Acoustic because it was, you know, acoustic. Yeah. And then the label came up with Heavenly Cream. So I think it is a little bit of a kind of irony, play on words, because, you know, Ginger, Pete and Bernie are not with us anymore. So you know, maybe it's a little bit like, it's heavenly, you know, cream is, it's like the taste of cream is heavenly, but it's also that these wonderful people are now kind of looking down on us from heaven, as it were. And there's the documentary has become quite, you know, it's like a little historical record of that time with those people who are no longer with us. So it's quite a special thing in a way. In that perspective.
What an honor to have them play on the record, you know what I mean? And have their talents on the record, and then, you know, be able to listen to them, you know, one last time, basically.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's, you know, it's just, I think looking back on the whole thing, I think it was a special little moment with all those wonderful people. I mean, life's a strange thing, right? I mean, we take everything for granted, but it's just passing by, really. Yeah. I mean, there's, you know, the eternal sense of things is going to always be there, but in terms of the content and people coming and going, and can't hold on too tightly to any of it, really. Yeah. Otherwise, you might get upset by stuff, and you want to enjoy your life. So you know, it's sad that people leave, but having said that, you know, all these people had incredibly rich, productive, loving, you know, Pete Brown I knew my whole life, and I've written a bunch of songs with Pete myself. I'm making a record that's coming out next year, and I've got about 3 co-written songs with Pete on that. But, you know, looking back on Pete's life, he just had a great I mean, after we did this recording with Heavenly Cream, I think he started writing songs with Joe Bonamassa. So there's a bunch of co-writes that he did with Joe and Procol Harum and all kinds of. He did so many different collaborations with all kinds of people, and Ginger, obviously, what an incredible life he had, and Bernie Marsden. So the people that have left us, they had great lives. So I like to frame it. I sort of choose to frame it like that. I mean, if somebody worked down the coal mine for their whole life and died a terrible death in poverty, then I might be like, oh man, what a waste. But these guys had it pretty good,
Yeah.
They had sort of an amazing time and lived life on their own terms. So I think we can celebrate them in that way. I think that's the best way to do it. Not to feel bad, to actually frame it positively.
What was it like? I'm going to pick a song here. So like let's say Crossroads, and Ginger Baker, Bernie was on it, Joe was on it, and you were on this track, right? And so what's it like for you guys? How does that whole process work? Where are you guys all meeting at the studio and saying, okay, let's work on this song? Or are you guys working on it prior and then meeting in the studio? How does that song go down? How does that get recorded?
Well, I mean, I think the good thing about this kind of music is that these songs have more or less become like standard.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
songs
absolutely.
in the rock
for sure.
pantheon. So you don't really need to. Okay, I'm just going to go home and practice the riff of Crossroads. Because I don't know how it goes. It's and if it's the sort of thing, even if you don't quite know what the form is, you can just all jump in and figure it out with run through it once, and then you kind of got it. But I mean, I'm sure all of us had played it a million times. I mean, I certainly played it live a million times, and I'm sure Joe has played it a bunch of times, and Ginger's played it a bunch of times, and Bernie and everybody that's kind of into rock music and blues and everything. So we were in the studio together in Abbey Road, and just went, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, really? Okay.
Or whatever we did, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how it is. I mean, I know you've got you're involved with lots of bands, and you're a talented musician yourself. So it's the process of collaboration. You don't want to overthink these things. You kind of there's stuff you can talk through, but you can also just feel things through. And certainly with this kind of music, it's just a feel thing. Like all great music, it ends up, even if you're sitting there reading complex contemporary classical music with polyrhythms and complex meter and all of that, there's still a lot of feeling it in the body and feeling it. How does that phrase move across time? And listening to what other people are doing and responding and locking in with other people and all that kind of stuff, and if it happens to be somebody who's got a famous name, then it's best not to think of,
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's Ginger Baker on the drums. I better play really well.
Right. So after you guys record like the basic tracks and stuff, do you guys go back in the control room and just like, are you guys like high-fiving each other going, that was killer, that was awesome? Or are you guys like really listening to it? Or what are you guys doing at that point?
Yeah, I mean, it's, we're working with Rob Cass, the producer, who's great. So, it's quite businesslike in that kind of situation, but we're having fun at the same time. So yes, it's Abbey Road. As far as I remember, those particular days were in Studio 2, which is the Beatles studio, the famous one. So you got the room, and then you got the staircase that goes up to the actual control room. So yes, we were tracking and then having a listen and doing overdubs, etc. And it's really nice, when you get a great take and you can solo Ginger Baker on the board and go, wow, that's really something.
It's so cool. I love it.
His musicianship is just astonishing. So yes, just like any studio, but I guess a certain kind of business-like approach to it in terms of timing. You don't want to waste time.
Sure.
There's a lot to get done sometimes. But sometimes you find you get it all done and then you've still got time to spare, so you can relax a little bit. But
what's the vibe like in Abbey Road? What's the, like if I was to walk in there, never been in there before, this is like a very famous studio. Of course, the Beatles and many, many other musicians have been there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, it's got this amazing, history. And, what's it like walking into that studio knowing you're going to record music there?
Well, I've done a few projects there now over the years, and I hope to do more. I mean, I think it's a mixture of things. It's always exciting to go there just because it's got an atmosphere to it that, I guess it's a bit like going to church. Everybody goes.
Good.
Everyone goes to the same place to do the same thing. It creates, continual impressions of a particular intention. Mm-hmm. And so you do go into Abbey Road and feel that. You feel, and also the instruments. I mean, the piano we were using is called a Challen, Challen. And they have two of them. They're just old upright pianos. They're not expensive, high, top line Steinways or something. They're Challen pianos. And they're old, but they maintain them, and those pianos have been there forever. And they have the one they call Mrs. Mills, which famously after a piano player called Mrs. Mills, who was very famous around the time of the Beatles, who played sort of pub music, but she was brilliant, like sort of stride piano, old style piano, and it's kind of the sound of a honky, almost like what you guys would call a honky tonk. So it's like slightly out of tune within itself. And they maintain these instruments, which have been, so the Challens were on the Pink Floyd stuff as well. So you get the actual sound of those instruments, but you also get the sound and the depth of those rooms themselves. So that's always exciting. You're in the sonic space that is recognizable on so many of these iconic records. But it's also just a working studio. It's got three main studios in there. Mm-hmm. Studio one is the very big room where they do orchestral recordings for Hollywood movies. They've done many, many big movie scores there. And then Studio 2 and then Studio 3 are the smaller rooms, but they're still pretty big and very versatile depending on how they're set up. So yeah, it's just a working studio. It's got a great little cafe restaurant. Some days you'll go in there and the whole of the London Symphony Orchestra are having their fish and chips or whatever they might be having. So yeah, it's good. It's great. It's very well run. They have a great mic collection, thousands and thousands of these incredible microphones, Neumanns and whatever. So yeah, cool. It's cool.
Well, I'm a songwriter as well, and obviously you're an amazing songwriter as well. And I wanted to talk to you about your songwriting and how you go about writing songs. And can you talk a little bit about how you create a song and the process? And do you have like a formula that you use, or is it just kind of open and you kind of just go with whatever comes to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm learning all the time, and I think each thing I do tends to I have to kind of start from scratch again. Mm-hmm. Depends on the style of music. If you set out with an intention, okay, I'm going to write a 3.5 minute song that is a kind of commercial song with verse, chorus, middle eight, then that gives you a little bit of a structure.
Yeah.
But within that, it could be anything. Sometimes I'll write lyrics first and then set it to music, which I find a bit easier, to be honest.
Okay.
Because I can write music in my sleep. I can write endless music. I can improvise songs in one go. It's not a problem to come up with musical ideas all the time. But if I've done that and then I've got a melody and go, okay, now I've got to fit all the words to that melody. Then I've got to try and work out what the words should be to the melody rather than more more freely just writes a poem, as it were, and then set that to music. So I mean, just from the outside thinking about it, words first would makes it easier for me to write a song, but that doesn't always produce the best results. So sometimes I'm doing both at the same time. It just depends. But as I say, every time I'm writing, I'm learning something new, and I'm also writing jazz stuff and classical stuff as well, which is a whole slightly different process as well. I'm writing opera at the moment.
Okay.
So that's a long process, but yeah, I mean, songs, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's, and I think it's like lyrical content, you know, for me right now. I mean, I'm in the middle of making this record. It's called Fake Humans and Real Dolls. So it's like social commentary, and it's also been exploring myself. So I think that's the thing as a songwriter. Do we go, okay, I'm going to write a song and I'm going to make up an imaginary story about somebody, and it's a love story, and she left and he's really upset, and so he's hitting his head on his kitchen table, and then he goes, no more, I'm not going to hit my head on the kitchen table anymore. I'm going to stand up and hold my head up high and get another girlfriend, or whatever it is, you know. But is it like from real life experience, or is it looking out at what the terrible things that are going on in the world, and how can we turn that around collectively, or you know, how can we stop spreading hate, or what is it coming from real life experience, or is it like writing to order, sitting down, going, what is a song supposed to be like? You know, that guy wrote a song like that. Should I write about that sort of thing, because then it will be accepted? So I mean, these are the questions that I think as artists we have to we're confronted with, you know, because there are songwriters that write to order, you know, because that's what's expected. Yeah. And then there are writers that write from their core experience, their being, who they really are, what they're trying to express as a human being, rather than just writing because there's an expectation to write in a certain way or whatever. So it's a very long-winded way of saying I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, you know, do you find that I always ask this question to songwriters, and it's really interesting, is that do you think that it's a gift, these songs that you write?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is catching things in the moment.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure you've had that experience, like you might be just waking up or having a little nap, or an idea comes to you. You're walking along, or something comes, and then 5 minutes later you go, I'll remember that. And 5 minutes later, wow, what was that amazing idea I had? I can't remember. Why didn't I write it down? You know, because I think things can bubble up from the subconscious, you know.
Sure.
And sometimes that's when the best ideas come, when you stop trying to think of something, it will just emerge. But there are other things to do. Like, I mean, we do debate, you know, I mean, I practice meditation. I'm talking about this a lot at the moment, but, you know, just when meditation just allows us to dip deep inside of ourselves to the core, the root of who we are, the base of our being. And that's the same as quantum level, you know, it's where all creativity comes from. It's where the universe is being created from, or where everything is emerging from. So there's that kind of pool of infinite creativity that's at the heart of all of us, you know. So yes, I mean, if we didn't understand that concept, then it can appear as if some people are just naturally gifted and other people aren't. But it is accessible. It's who we really are. It's who we all really are. But it's just whether we've figured out a way to access that, or whether it's just kind of coming through and appearing as a gift.
Yeah.
But I think there are certainly people that seem to be gifted because they've learned to have that more consistently. And there's always that fear, like I've written loads of songs, and there's always that fear of like, what if I can never find a good idea again, you know?
Right, yeah, for sure.
So it's like, I'm maybe that's all right. And you see that a lot. You see people that, it's the youthful thing sometimes. You see people very young who come up with these incredible things. And then as they get older, it sort of dries up. And whether that's because they become jaded, or they take too many drugs, or something happens where they lose that spontaneity, lose that kind of creative connection with their self. So I'd see that a lot, and I think we see that throughout history, where I mean, I'm not saying. I mean, Paul McCartney's amazing because he's still, he's 80 or whatever, but he's still writing and performing and creating amazing work. But having said that, if we think about like what him and John did when they were kids, essentially, they just churned out amazing song after amazing song after amazing. It's ridiculous.
It is.
I mean, it's different. I think there are different stages of life. With different kinds of creative expression, and that's okay. And I'm sure Paul's fine with that too. But there's that kind of youthful energy that people can have.
What's it like for you? You sit there and you work on a song, and then you go and perform it for the first time. What's that feeling like for you?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I've been thinking about that a lot. Like, in an ideal world, with the record I'm working on right now, I would write all the songs. I've written loads of songs and recorded about 15 so far, but I'm still writing more and still deciding what it's all going to be. But it wouldn't it be great to sort of write a bunch of songs and then go and do a tour for a year and play those songs 200 times on a massive tour, and then go into the studio and record them?
Right.
Because you would have kind of figured out what was working, what wasn't working. Oh, that needs a different section here, or the audience really loved that bit, so let's expand this bit, or whatever. Or I found myself in this part, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But we tend to make a record and then go out and perform it, and that's it, really. So I don't really know. I mean, it's amazing when. We can't always predict, I think. That's the other thing. I mean, sometimes I think I've written something that's okay, but it sort of comes alive when it's performed live. Somehow something magical takes over, which isn't just about the song. It's about the intention behind it. It's about how the audience responds to it. You can't always predict. That's the strange thing about writing. And sometimes I think it's okay, and then it somehow takes on a bigger meaning because it's being performed in front of people. It's something else takes over. So but it's different every time, I think. I'm learning all the time.
For sure. You know who does that, and not a musician, but a comedian, is Kevin Hart. He's great. He goes around for like a year in small clubs and does exactly what you're talking about. Figures things out, audiences and stuff. And I saw him play at a small venue, and you're not allowed to tape it. They make you put your phones in these little things, and so you can't record anything. And he just works on his material. It's still super funny. And then he goes to the next one, and then he does the huge tour, where he does the stadiums and stuff. And you're right. Going and performing those and kind of working them out prior to going in the recording studio is super smart.
Amazing. I mean, I heard Dave Chappelle got into trouble the other day. We're not going to get political, but I mean, it's just that all those guys are just geniuses, and Dave is a genius. But I can't imagine it's an easy time to be somebody who's that liberated in terms of like exploring his ideas in front of some people. Because we're living in those times where you just got to everyone's being really cautious, But as somebody who's on the edge in the way that Dave Chappelle is, like
totally, yeah.
Whoa. Anyway, I digress. But Kevin's amazing. Yeah, I mean, all those guys just have so much going for them. It's a great idea. I mean, maybe I'm actually doing 4 shows in January in the kind of London and Oxford, just kind of we call it the Southeast, so just like the London area. Yeah. I'm doing 4 little shows, just like 200 capacity venues. And I'm calling it like a little showcase warm-up mini tour, And in a sense, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing it to try out this material in front of an audience.
Yeah.
But I've already recorded a lot of the records, so maybe I'll have to record the record again after these shows. I don't know.
So,
man.
so if people want to, this is coming out November 3rd, right? The Heavenly Cream Acoustic Tribute.
Yeah.
So that's coming out November 3rd. And if people want to buy that or find it somewhere, where would they go?
Yes, it's already available for pre-order, and it's on propermusic.com, which is a music distribution company that the label are using.
Okay.
So they can go on propermusic.com and type in Heavenly Cream and Acoustic Tribute to Cream. Uh-huh. And there is the documentary is already available for streaming, I believe, but I don't know the details for that. But again, that can be Googled, I guess.
Is that going to be coming out on Netflix and all that kind of stuff? Is it going to be?
Yeah, I think. Okay. Well, I'm not sure if it's going to be Netflix, but it's going to be. There is quite, as you know, I'm sure there's loads of different streaming services. So I'm not sure who they've cut the deal with, but I think it's out already.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
And the CD and download of the album comes out on November 3rd, but I think there's a double vinyl package that's coming out a little later in the month, around the 24th, around November 24th. So that's, if you're like the super audiophile kind of guy or girl that likes the vinyl type thing, that's also going to be available.
What about you? And if people want to find your solo stuff, where would they find your stuff at?
So I've got a very underdeveloped website that needs updating, but like probably loads of people, it's like it's just got links to my social media. But MalcolmBruceMusic.com.
Okay.
And then I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm even on Threads, man.
Wow, you're hip.
Account. I feel like I'm a grown up now.
Right. That's awesome.
So yeah, I'm on all like social media, and I'm just updating stuff all the time. I'm going to be shooting some music videos, some more stuff in the next period of time as well. So yeah, I always appreciate the support. People can
absolutely
follow me, man, like me. I need to be liked.
Right. Well, Malcolm, hey, it's an honor, and I wish you the best, man. And thank you so much for being.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks for being on my podcast, and I'll look for that.
Well, thanks for asking me, and maybe we can do it again when my record's out next year or something.
I would love that.
That'd be cool.
Okay, well, let's plan on that for sure.
Fantastic, man.
All right, buddy. Well, take care, and we'll talk soon.
All right.
It's a Guy Jeans podcast.